blockbuster guests and exclusive reporting with no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I think there is a culture of collusion, quite frankly.
And no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online, Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan Tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard.
We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think. Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
You love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
The latest from the GB newsroom, and the Poundland owner Pepco has agreed to buy up to 71 Wilko stores. It comes as the retailer prepares to close 24 outlets, and the rest will be shut by next month. That means 12,000 jobs are now at risk, although the new owners, Poundland, say they plan to offer roles to some Wilko team members where possible. And that on a day when Barclays Bank is cutting over 450 staff. Unite, the union which represents the employers at the bank, has branded the decision unnecessary and unjustified. And they've criticised Barclays for cutting jobs at a time when the bank is making big profits. 2 lorry drivers have been arrested in Romania, accused of being part of a major organised crime conspiracy to smuggle migrants to the UK in the back of lorries. Nicolae Toma is accused of attempting to smuggle 9 migrants into the UK in 2020. Vasily Balkovai is suspected of having dropped 2 migrants he'd smuggled into the UK at a service station in 2021. And that coming as GB News reveals that more than 3,250 migrants crossed the English Channel in the last 11 days. And that coincides with the longest run of good weather so far this year. Home Office figures show 144 Channel migrants crossed yesterday in 3 small boats. And today, 2 boats crossed carrying over 100 people. Now, a residential street in Glasgow was cordoned off today after the discovery of a suspected unexploded ordnance device. Police Scotland say they were called shortly after midday after it was dug up in someone's back garden. The explosive ordnance disposal team were immediately dispatched to the property and the cordon thrown into place. People in surrounding properties were evacuated as a precaution. The BP boss, Bernard Looney, has resigned after accepting he hadn't been fully transparent in his disclosures about past relationships with colleagues. Mr. Looney is standing down with immediate effect. The oil company says it has strong values and the board expects everyone at the company to behave in accordance with those values. BP added it hasn't decided on any severance payments to be paid to Mr. Looney. A pub chain is to charge customers around 20 pence more a pint during peak times. Stonegate, which owns the Slug and Lettuce chain of pubs and restaurants, says prices will increase at 800 of its venues on evenings and at weekends. It's called peak time pricing. And it's previously carried out the practice during one-off events like the World Cup. But it says it will now introduce regular surge pricing. You're with GB News across the UK on your TV, in your car, on your digital radio, and now on your smart speaker by saying play GB News. This is Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Simon Evans. Tonight I am joined by two of our greatest contributors, Josh Howie and Darius Davis. Good evening, gentlemen.
Nice intro, thank you.
Thank you. I skipped over something that I found a little bit peculiar and wasn't quite sure what to do about it. Turkey plastic surgeons.
I was just basically saying that I was the before and this was the after.
Oh, OK, the hair implants, yeah.
Facial stuff probably as well.
You've written it yourself, and so it was fine. Sometimes I get fed lines that I feel I might alienate my guest before I've begun, but you were OK.
You know my...
I was going to have you reenact some great battles from antiquity, being, as you are, of two rival Middle Eastern peoples.
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah.
I've been
reading it. That's right, yeah. Darius marching across the sands towards Nineveh. How do you feel about that? Do you feel that
it's
in
all
your
coming
blood
back.
still?
Yeah, I feel it now. I mean, I come from Pimlico, really, but, you know,
Thousand hairy horsemen yelling derision in your ear, like in poor old Arthur Dent. Anyway, let's get on with the front pages instead of this fantastical nonsense. The Daily Mail kick us off. Minister's threat to future of pensions triple lock. And a picture of Kate, who has fallen victim to the mummy trampoline curse. The Telegraph goes with Wallace, human rights laws protecting terrorists. The Guardian has beyond comprehension. Libya flooding leaves thousands dead. The Times has MI5 warned Tories MP candidates may be spies. The iNews has state pension triple lock under threat after election. And finally, the Daily Star, the secret of success, never give more than 85%. Well, that's always worked for me. Those were your front pages. So let us go first to the Telegraph, Josh.
The Telegraph
front page as always.
Yeah, and they've got three really good stories. So please let me just say the three of them because the other two are excellent as well. But the biggest one, I guess, would be Wallace, human rights laws protecting terrorists. And obviously this is our ex-defence secretary who is essentially saying that when there's some bad people on other parts of the world, his options are curtailed somewhat. He can only kill them with strikes. That's fine. He can send in the drones. That's all good, but he's not allowed to capture them.
No.
He wished because of the EHRC, but other international laws as well, human rights laws. So he feels like he would prefer to have options. I'm totally fine with him just killing them myself.
He's being forced into the final solution, as it were, for this. Sorry, that was what's wrong with me tonight? But he's being forced into the extreme measure of assassination because if he were to capture them, he immediately is entangled in bureaucratic.
Essentially,
tape.
That's the gist of the article. Yeah, which is I mean, it is interesting.
There's a lot of discussion, isn't there, about the ECHR, isn't it? European Court of Human Rights. What's his name? Sumption has been saying that he's, Jonathan Sumption, the senior law lord, who was quite sceptical about lockdown and so on, he's come out against it recently, and he's one of the more reasonable voices.
Well, Ben Wallace says he doesn't want the EHRC, but he just wants more clarity.
OK.
Is what he's sort of saying.
Fair enough.
And that's obviously what they've latched onto. Probably from a 4-hour interview, they've whittled down to this one talking point.
Well, he's a serious chap, Ben Wallace. Everyone admired him very much. Was surprised he wouldn't stand for leader. There's a nice picture of Penny Mordaunt with a boat. Yep,
she's got a boat there. I think they're going to build a couple of boats. But I think the other two stories are really interesting is that the National Crime Agency has come out and basically said we need some kind of Rwanda policy if we are going to stop migrants coming over by the boats. This is on the eve of Labour. They're going to be finally saying what they would do instead, which is essentially asking for more cooperation and stuff. But as the National Crime Agency says, it's really it's not just like dealing with one organisation. You put down one, another one's going to come. The need is there, the desire is there, and if people feel like, and they said the only time it's ever worked is what Australia did.
And that's absolutely true. But of course, Australia has the benefit of having a number of islands just moored off, not moored, but just off the coast of Australia that they can re-deliver these people to.
Isle of Wight?
It's possible, isn't it? Or Jersey. I am interested, as you say, it's obviously Labour have had the luxury of just being able to tut for the last few years. But I do think, although there's been an awful lot of news of this kind, you know, the Express exclusive that we covered last night, and I know Nigel Farage has been talking about, in which it's been exposed that we've paid getting on for £1 billion for absolutely nothing. All these French...
Well, the numbers have gone down. They have gone down.
But they're not taking it seriously. They're not doing their job, you know, preventing this happening. Do you have a view on this one, Darius?
I heard someone say today, like, we should just send them back to France on our boats, which I thought was if that's
just a sort of circular trade,
And then they were, I think that's
with maybe a lot of duty free. We could use, like,
I think that's the
mussels and cockles on going out. And,
I think that's a good idea. I mean, yes, obviously something needs to be done. They're coming over. Well, lots of boats coming over here in droves. I think sending them back to France and then deal with it there, put it back on the French and see how they deal with it.
There's obviously, it's a very muddy area, isn't it? Because, you know, in terms of overall numbers, it might not be huge, but the psychological damage it's doing at the moment, I think, is pretty substantial to the people's sense of their island being inviolate. You know, it's a traditional part of our island persona, isn't it? Our character is. You know.
Or alternatively, go the Leo Curse route, and when they arrive here, all the people who are welcoming them in their, you know, their nice communities in the Cotswolds, send them there.
Yeah, as DeSantis did, sending them up to Martha's Vineyard.
New York is, it's going crazy. But the final story, which is tiny, which unfortunately we don't actually have the full text for because it just came in, but is girls want a house, not a husband. So I think it tips over like 52% or something like that of girls say that by 30 they would rather have a house than a husband. And I think they've got more luck getting a husband.
Yeah, almost
the way
certainly.
that things are going
and
nowadays.
also as a route to getting a house, I would have said, but still. What do you got on the Times, Darius?
The Times lead with MI5 warned Conservatives that MP hopefuls could be spies. So 2 potential candidates dropped after the intelligence service said they could be Chinese agents. So apparently the Chinese have been influencing you know, people entering the Conservative Party through the United Front Works Department. So Chris Cash, 28, who's the director of an influential group on Beijing, co-founded by the security minister, he's been, you know, accused of working for the Chinese. So
he's the one who they weren't allowed to name in the House yesterday, I think. So they weren't there. There's an awful lot of, again, confusion and smoke around this. But it does start to feel as if it's building up again a certain amount of momentum, not an isolated case.
It's interesting that it's 2 potential Tory MPs, as opposed to Labour. Now, there could well be some Labour, but traditionally you would think that the politics would align more that way, or maybe they think that...
It's hard to say, though, isn't it, now, whether... I mean, it is still the Chinese Communist Party, is that what you mean, that they have a sort of extreme hard-left sympathies? But I think equally it's very, you know, is that really a left-wing enterprise?
But also it's like, well, what do they know that we don't? Because everyone else is saying Labour are going to get in, so surely...
Yes, follow the money has now become just follow the Chinese spy ring.
But I think the Chinese, what it says in the article is that they're targeting people just getting into politics. So they're just, it's like Man City, they're just signing up all the young potential politicians.
And then they're vulnerable and they're flexible and they're naive and they're eager to get ahead.
If they're looking for vulnerable, flexible, naive...
Here we are, guys. We can be bought. The Daily Mail, Josh.
Yes, Minister's threat to future of pensions, triple lock. This is the beloved triple lock of anybody over a certain age, but they've got a funny little tweet. They've found a little loophole, possibly, where they're talking about because this year it turns out that the wages is the biggest increase overall. Increase in wages, but they've sort of said, wait a minute, if we take away the bonuses. Then actually it goes down from like 8.4 to 7.8.
They're not tracking city bankers, though, are they?
Well, I don't know. That just shows how much of an income that they make for the economy.
So the triple lock is they get the best of whichever one is...
Whichever one's the highest. At the moment, it's the wages. So that would actually... So if they did that, pensioners would lose about £74 a month or something like that, which is, but you add that up, we're talking billions here, obviously.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's the largest growing demographic in the country, isn't it?
Yeah.
And yet still poorly served for comedy, in my view.
Poorly served for comedy, but not necessarily poor. I think I read somewhere 1 in 4 being a millionaire. I know this is property and whatnot.
They've all got their own homes, that's absolutely right. But, of course, that is the great unspeakable, isn't it, at the moment, you know, about the extent to which they might be expected to... dip into those. Daily Star, Darius, to close off.
Daily Star say the secret of success is to never give more than 85%. So I agree with that. Never give the full length, hold back a little bit.
Yeah.
A little surprise. You can always take it to the next level.
When you find that little bit of extra.
Yeah, a little bit of extra.
It is interesting, isn't it, how there is that kind of... I mean, I say it's interesting, but I am aware of a certain kind of machismo that goes with, you know, always give 110%. Truth is, you cannot always give 110%, and there's nothing more annoying than being in the presence of somebody who's determined to do so in many work environments.
Yeah, but also, I don't think they're saying the boffins, you know, this is their running joke. But actually, I think I've read this in like sort of more like self-help books and stuff, where the idea is to achieve the flow state. Yeah. It's not about being like, like that. No. It's about holding back a little bit because that's that calmness.
The flow state is... Not all jobs make the flow state, but it is really fascinating. The key with the flow state is to be doing something that you're engaged in, like, totally, right? Not giving 100%, but, like, focused on. And that needs to be something that you believe to be worthwhile, that is testing your skills to the limit, not beyond them, and that you're getting immediate feedback from about how well you're doing.
OK, China, again.
But I feel we're very lucky, because I think stand-up is exactly like that. A good gig, you absolutely do enter that state. You know?
get that feedback.
But you wouldn't want to do it for 8 hours a day. Anyway, that's enough for this section. We have, coming up after the break, what do we have? Filthy Rivers, there we go. Filthy Rivers, caring givers and dental shivers. An interesting triumvirate. We'll see you in a couple of minutes. Thank you.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
is the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
And welcome back to Headliners. So we're diving inside the newspapers now. Josh, bad news for Amazon. If Labour get in, they could be up the world's largest river delta without a paddle.
Indeed. Labour will abolish anti-strike laws, pledges Angela Rayner. So it's like you alluded to about Labour actually finally giving some policy. It's like it's in the film Braveheart, and they're standing there, and there's the horses are coming to all this. Steady, steady. And now we're getting there. All right, put them up. So this is it. Now we're into it. And now that Labour are starting to actually say stuff, what they'll do, one of the big ones they're saying, and obviously they're saying it while speaking to all the union leaders at the TUC conference in Liverpool, is she's basically saying, if the anti-strike laws come in, they'll be wiped out straight away. And then also this thing, because Amazon used the loophole to stop them unionising their workers.
Is it like Uber and Deliveroo? Are they basically they're all on sort of 0 hours contracts?
No, it was that they brought in a bunch of extra workers
to
basically vote so that they didn't have the numbers to be able to unionise.
Oh, really?
Tricky stuff like that. These companies, I mean, there's dodgy.
Gerrymandering your own workforce. That is pretty extreme, isn't it? But then Amazon have got that kind of money, I guess. Where do you stand on this, Darius?
Yeah, I mean, what I like is that she's given a, quote, cast iron manifesto commitment, which means the Labour will instantly renege on it.
Cast iron means it will break.
Yeah, cast iron means instantly it will be reneged on, you know, when it's a cast iron.
When they nick my bike, so I don't see why it can't be broken on this.
Yeah, but they apparently Labour brought in 1,000 extra. Amazon brought in 1,000 extra workers, and that's what led to them not being able to get the.
And yeah, I cannot seem to stop using them.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is also it feels like there's some 4D chess going on that I just can't, because the fact that the Conservatives are bringing in this policy, and it feels like this would be
forcing
Labour to step forward, and then it's like, who are the people going to side with? We respect doctors and whatnot, but then a lot of people have been inconvenienced, and health has been interrupted.
It's a calculation, I guess. And to be fair, although he is now in hindsight seen as a disaster, Corbyn came quite close with making came quite close in 2017 with a manifesto that was clearly aimed at the workers and didn't care about the possibility, the horizon of striking and so on. Different issues raised themselves in 2019, but I think there is potentially the appetite in this country now for a party that is just firmly and squarely behind the lower paid.
Well, also just to give them some backing anyway. But I'd argue that Corbyn's 2017 was more about Theresa May and Brexit and whatnot.
Well, these things are always complicated, but I don't think this will necessarily be a shot in the foot. Having said that, Liverpool, of course, I mean, that is pretty much the hope of all of that anyway, isn't it? Darius, we have The Guardian next, and talking of controversial river systems, The Guardian says ours and our government are full of it.
Yeah, ministers may have broken law over sewage dumping in England, says Watchdog. So the Office for Environmental Protection have said that we're failing to comply with environmental law and allowing raw sewage to be discharged by water companies more frequently than the law allows.
So the law basically gives them the right to do this in emergencies, but they've just been doing it as a
yeah. So once the storm overflow, during storms they're allowed to do an overflow, and they've just been doing it more frequently to discharge raw sewage as and when they want.
I like this
impunity.
Quote from Steve Reed, Labour's Steve Reed. Nothing represents 13 years of Conservative failure more graphically than the sight of stinking, toxic sewage pouring into our rivers, lakes and seas. Rishi Sunak wouldn't want raw sewage in his private swimming pool, yet he's happy to let human excrement pollute our waterways. It may not be entirely fair, but it's certainly a powerful image, isn't it?
And everybody gets that private swimming pool in there, doesn't he?
He does all the time.
So hey, he went for a walk today, and then what, did he go into his private swimming pool? But
Rishi Sunak wouldn't want his swimming pool full of junior doctors, but he's quite happy to see them.
And it's actually quite an interest. It's a little bit more complicated because, yes, the Tories have cut back on the enforcement and the monitoring, and that's arguably why this happened. But this problem's been around since 2012, where it was first actually brought up and they were found guilty, the water companies in this country, by the EU. And then what happened was, the whole thing was that this new OEP was set up to replace the EU part of it. But the OEP, this is the British version of it, doesn't have the power. So they can't actually say that. So the problem is that the permits are wrong, but also they're saying that this is why they're blaming the government, is the enforcement has been illegal as well. This is what they're saying. But then again, the EU didn't do anything about it when they found them guilty in 2012. We got these new guys. They can say whatever they want. If they don't have the powers, really, it's going to ultimately come down to whoever's in government to
so
put some laws out.
I think it is going to become a major election issue, I would imagine. Josh, the next story is another major election issue. The NHS is both woefully understaffed and the biggest it's ever been.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, size of public sector. That's one of these stories. It's like they give you the headline, they give you the back, you're reading it, you flip-flop about 5 times during the reading of it. But yeah, size of public sector, biggest in decade after the NHS and civil servants hiring spree increased. Public sector employment coincides with rising levels of pay. So this is a lot of different things going on in this Telegraph article. Part of this is, of course, because of population increase. Part of this is also because of austerity. Everything was cut back. So the overall feeling of the article is that they cut back to the bone. And now they're going, wait a minute, we've got to rehire people to deal with asylum claims and to deal with passports and to deal with it. So that the body is being kind of rebuilt.
But they're saying the NHS workforce here, it says, has ballooned to almost 2 million employees, up from 1.6 13 years ago. Now, even allowing for journalists, I don't think that's ballooning.
Yes.
I wouldn't be surprised if the population of the country has gone up by a similar sort of ratio to that, from 1.6 million to nearly 2 million in 13 years. I mean, that's... we've got a lot more people now.
Feels like a similar rate. But then there's sort of like unemployment's up, but employment's down. It's like it's these sort of constant things. The one thing that the armed forces have shrunk by about nearly 50,000 in the last 10 years.
That's something we have been taking our foot off that particular pedal for some time.
Well, luckily the NHS has gone up then to cover for any casualties. Still can't get an appointment.
No, well, that is the reality on the ground, isn't it? Everyone has registered that now, that GPs do not offer the same service that they used to. The idea that you could make an appointment in the region, you either have to just hammer the phone at 8:30 every morning or give up on it, right?
8 to 8:01 a.m, not 8:30.
I just tell them I'm 6 years old. It's always good when I call for my kids, they're pretty quick. So just tell them, oh, would you mind seeing me as well, doctor?
Little life hack.
We have the Telegraph again now. I initially read this as dental desserts, which suggested something boringly sugar-free, but no, it's deserts. Is that right?
Yeah, well, UK dental deserts mean 3 in 10 people are missing work with toothache. So the NHS workforce, basically, there's just not enough dentists going around. It's not really doing good for our stereotypes of the UK teeth. But apparently a survey of more than 5,000 people, 2 in 10 people have taken a sick day because of dental pain, while 1 in 10 have taken a whole week off. I mean, I think if you're taking a whole week off, maybe, you
dental pain can be incredible. The only really bad dental pain I've ever had, anecdotal, was I took a flight to Aspen, Colorado, which is a ski resort, but I was going there for a comedy festival about 15 years ago, and Aspen, Colorado is at about 8,000 feet, where the housing is, and consequently the pressure shift activated a sort of dormant abscess I had in my teeth that I didn't know anything about, and it became excruciating over about the course of 24 hours. And I've never known pain like it, but luckily I had the travel insurance. I was able to see the high end.
That's so weird. That pretty much exactly the same thing happened to me, but in Salt Lake City, and that's genuinely true. And it was at the most pain. Couldn't deal with it.
And then when they came, did they give you the Novocaine? He gave me a Novocaine injection.
I couldn't actually get it sorted.
You couldn't? I managed to. I saw a Scandinavian doctor, a dentist, and it was like a proper high-end ski resort dentist on my and it was almost worth it, because the Novocaine injection was the most blissful experience I think I felt my whole body just... you've been like... Anyway, so, I don't laugh at dental pain. It can be excruciating.
About a whole week?
Yeah, that's weird, isn't it? You want to load up on...
Well, the problem is obviously NHS dentists. So they're now saying that they're putting more money into training and whatnot, but it's too little too late. This situation's been around for years, but it's also the contracts that they sign, and that's why so many more dentists have gone private. They're charging absolute fortune for it. My NHS dentist, local, just kicked me out. Like, I hadn't spoken to them for... they said, oh, anybody who doesn't call for a year, we just kick off.
Oh, I had that.
Off the books.
Yeah.
And that's it. And then I had to pay privately.
You have to go in regularly and say yes when they talk about the dental hygienist, because that's their little kickback. That's basically the backsheesh in the dental industry.
Oh, is it? I was at the dentist today, actually.
Did you?
You all right?
Yeah, that's good, just a checkup.
Is it good? Give us a... They look pretty good, Darren.
Out of spite, I refuse to get bad teeth, so I make sure I brush and floss.
I mean, it is noticeable. It's true what you say. It is noticeable, in particular on this channel, when you see people who have their teeth, done.
Yeah, it's too expensive otherwise.
Sandwich generation stuff now, Josh. The Mail has some short films about the slowest moving tsunami ever to overwhelm a society.
Yeah, increasing an intense personal, professional and emotional strain is making UK families unable to care for ageing population, study reveals. Now, this study was paid for by a company called Home Instead, which is a private home care provider. I imagine they send people in and give people days off and whatnot. But the facts that they are revealing, and I know this through personal experience with friends and actually someone who watches this show, Simon, who's looking after his parents, it's really, really tough.
Yeah.
And I don't know if our economy would survive it. There's 5 million people who are caring for their parents. The mental health, the strains that they're under, and of their time, economics, and also there's some interesting things that are revealed about how even though they are taking care of their parents, they still feel guilty that they're not doing enough. They feel guilty about their lack of progress at work. Yeah, it's really, really tough, and I'm not going to take care of my parents.
That's it for part two.
Silver lining on that. There's a silver lining on that, though. If you are taking care of your parents, at least your surname's not Fritzl.
Coming up after the break, we have illiterate kids, brainy kids and angry kids. A full range of kids. See you very shortly.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening, welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Now, it'll be feeling much more like autumn across the UK to start tomorrow morning, but it'll stay cloudy and milder across the southeast. That's because the milder air is being more confined to the southeast as this front has cleared eastwards across the country throughout today. It's brought quite a lot of heavy rain, and that rain will continue across southeastern areas through this evening. Continued risk of thunderstorms until around 8 or 9 o'clock. But then behind that, we get a lot of cloud across the southeast, some rain and drizzle still over the hills and the coast, but many areas seeing clear and dry weather across the rest of the UK, and it will feel much chillier tonight than recently. A touch of frost is possible tomorrow morning in any sheltered Scottish glens. A good deal of sunshine to start the day across the bulk of the country. However, the cloud will thicken through the day, particularly across the northwest, and also elsewhere we'll get some fair weather cloud bubbling up. But in the northwest, we'll see some rain arriving as well. And the temperatures will be a little bit below average for the time of year here. Elsewhere, much closer to the September average, highs of about 18 or 19 degrees. Now, the rain pushes down from Scotland into northern England on Thursday, leaving many parts of northern England and Wales with a damp and cloudy day. Elsewhere, though, drier with a risk of showers in the north. And in the south and east, it will be milder and drier once again. It stays warm across the southeast into the weekend with cooler, fresher weather, more restricted to the north.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton, for 2 hours packed full of unfiltered opinions, unique takes, and fiery debates. I guarantee you blockbuster guests and exclusive reporting with no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I think there is a culture of collusion, quite frankly.
And no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio, and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard.
We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think. Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
And welcome back to Headliners. So over to The Guardian now, Darius, for trans leaks, one of the many unfortunate, rarely acknowledged side effects.
Well, actually, so this isn't from The Guardian. This isn't from The Guardian, this is actually from The Times.
Oh, I apologise.
I accept your apology.
It's about The Guardian.
It's about The Guardian.
The Guardian,
Leaked
trans leaks at The Guardian.
Yeah, leaked recording exposes trans turmoil at The Guardian. So, in a leaked recording to the American website Semaphore, heretics Sonia Soda and Susanna Rustin at the Guardian argued that trans women should be separated from biological women in certain spaces. So obviously this can't be. This is heresy at the Guardian. Yeah. And Soda, who's the chief lead writer of the Observer, said, she's had attempts to try and get kicked off charitable boards. She's been doxxed online by people who disagree with her on this issue. Her home address has been published online, and there's been a lot of internal kind of debates. But apparently what's interesting is one former staff member said, as long as The Guardian bows to Guardian US, I don't see much changing. Oh. So this is coming from The Guardian US, and it's dictating to The Guardian, our policy, kind of The Guardian's direction in the UK. So it's all coming from there, and it's now over here.
Because The Guardian US is an offshoot of the British paper rather than the other way around.
Well, that's what I was interested in.
Trying to break into that market, and I think that's it. And one of the most woeful bits of journalism I've ever read was in The Guardian, was written by Guardian US about I don't know if you remember the Wee Spa incident about 3 years ago, 2-3 years ago, where they basically were like trying to say this black woman was like a supremacist, lying that this incident took place that her child hadn't been exposed to, and then of course it came out that actually it was a sex offender who had been in this whole thing, and as a whole. But if you read this article,
they were trying to mock anyone who made capital out of it. They thought that these people were
saying any protesters were like fascists and whatnot. So if you read that article, and I can't believe I actually looked for it recently. I found it on their website still. It's like literally lies, and if you knew what was going on, you're like, this was amazing. That was one of the most eye-opening incidents for me.
And it has been the main issue on which senior journalists, Suzanne Moore, it mentions, and Hadley Freeman have left, and they're not the only ones, and they continue to have online bouts of furious disagreement with Owen Jones in particular, and so on. It's bringing their reputation far lower than any other.
Absolutely.
And then also they gave a 5-star review to Irish singer Roshan Murphy.
Roisin, I think it is,
Roisin, no one has used. Just spell it the right way. Anyway, the point is, they gave her a 5-star review, but said, it's been marred by her views on...
Stained, I believe they said.
Stained.
Disgraceful. I mean, I suppose nice of them to give her the 5-star review, but...
But also in the review that they gave a lot of the credit to the male producer and all of this stuff. And then loads of people after that found all these examples of them reviewing male domestic violence, male rape, whatever it was, and of course not mentioning anything to do with their past.
It may have worked out for Roisin, I don't know. I've seen a lot of people online saying that they've been listening to the album.
I bought the album.
It's great. Well, good stuff. Not my kind of thing.
Yeah.
I like male music. Josh, Key Stage 2 literacy now, and to no one's great surprise, the pandemic, like all long holidays, has opened the gap between low and middle income kids.
Yes, oh gosh. But the headline, though, is fewer girls met expected standard in the SATs reading exam this summer. So there's a few factors going on here. This was a detailed breakdown of the Key Stage 2 SATs, which is Year 6, which is 11-year-old, which my son sat. And basically, it has gone up a bit, but it's not as good as it was. Obviously, pandemic having an effect on that. Also, the gap between people on free school meals and not. And but interestingly, the girls haven't increased, because usually at that level there's still like quite an advantage for girls, and that hasn't been. So we're still seeing the effects of COVID. I personally, from anecdotal, just from my own experience, and my son who's now gone into Year 6, my 10-year-old, I believe it was that year that was worst affected, because the year that they missed at school, which was Year 2 at the time, was this pivotal embedding year of learning the basics and spelling and whatnot. And I think we're going to see a big drop next year. Even though we're seeing an increase, I think there's going to be a big drop next year. Do you want to bet money on it?
It's just interesting to me that, girls are getting dumber. Women are committing more crimes. Women are committing more crimes. These females they're really going off the rails.
Guardian, No, I mean, it is. They are still ahead, I think, aren't they? Of course, but as you say, they've fallen back. 70% of boys meeting the expected standard. I mean, that just doesn't feel good enough.
No, it doesn't.
It just is not. It's not okay, is it? But I think they should overhaul the whole system and drastically shorten the summer holiday. I've been saying this for some time. It sounds like I'm being kind of cookie.
I agree. Shorten it to like 3 days.
Yeah, maybe a long weekend, But no, seriously, I mean, you could easily have 4 holidays instead of Easter, Christmas and this. The summer holiday, we all know, is there from the days of Thomas Hardy and, harvesting. It's absolutely irrelevant. It's an absurd thing to do. And this is, well, the other story we're going to come on to. Why don't we do it now? Education news, Darius. Let's carefully tiptoe around this story. But the Chinese children,
the Telegraph reports that the Chinese children are vastly outperforming their white British peers. I've always said that bat, chicken feet and live octopus are brain food, so there might be something in that. But they're outperforming their white British peers, so vicariously also their black, Asian and all their other peers.
They're doing the top, like poor white kids are doing about the worst in the British schools at the moment. But it is interesting. I mean, there's always this kind of, we have a culture of learning and so on when a particular ethnicity does well. Nobody wants to consider the possibility that it might be something more fundamental than that. But there certainly does seem to be something to be learned. Malcolm Gladwell, who I know his books are kind of like, looked at somewhat askance, but I find them enjoyable. He points out that in East Asia, they do not have 8 weeks of summer holiday. Yeah. They never have had, because you have 3 rice harvests a year. You don't have this kind of huge, ridiculous 19th century, artefact still, squatting in the middle of the year. And they expect them to work hard throughout the year. Well, and that has developed a culture which has elevated. They have all sorts of other slightly, less desirable things like Confucian aspiration to the civil service and so on, possibly. But, there's something to be said for that, I think.
It's a culture thing. And, I mean, the fact that the Chinese kids of Chinese ethnicity on free school meals are doing better than the national average just shows you that, it's about family, it's about focus, it's about immigrants coming to this country and going for it.
Centering education as the ladder, absolutely. Guardian now, Josh, a huge data dump of the political views of young adults worldwide. Have you found any cherries in this? I couldn't see. I couldn't make any head.
Again, it just goes back and forth. There's a few very strange overlaps of so younger people more likely to doubt the merits of democracy. This is a global poll. by the Open Society Foundations, a lot of conspiracy theorists. It's Soros. They would sort of go, but essentially, there's a few things that sort of undermine each other. But one is 86% of respondents prefer to live in a democratic state, but only 20% believe that authoritarian regimes are more capable of delivering what citizens want. So there's a weird sort of 6% there who are a little bit confused.
Some of them seem to be quite keen on military dictatorships, don't they? Which is surprising, but I mean, I guess there's a certain amount of glamour attaches to those. I don't know.
And the younger people, which they're sort of saying it's because they've basically lost hope in the system.
Yeah.
Essentially just wishes that one person would just take care of them and tell them what to do.
The glory years of Brazil were under a military dictatorship, footballing-wise. I think that's always overlooked that, yeah. What are your views, Darius? You're a young person.
35% felt a strong leader who did not hold elections or consult Parliament was a good way to run a country.
Yeah. 10% less democracy. Singapore.
I don't know, funded by billionaire philanthropist George Soros. So
there is actually something. The Open Society is a decent organisation in principle, but it's named after Karl Popper's book.
Yeah, well, but anybody, if some people hear his name and they just go to a different place. I do want to say one quick thing, which is, this is what negates the whole study is, many respondents believe that China's growing influence would be a force for good. So basically people, then for their country, then a negative one. So Pakistan, Ethiopia, Egypt, basically where China is sort of investing, they're sort of going, China's going to take over the world and get rid of America.
Break up the American hegemony.
I'm sorry, and I'm not going to go with that.
No, I agree. Let's wait for part 3 coming up. Polish blackface acts, Ethiopian artifacts and volcanic battery packs. I'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by headliners on TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
delicious?
Mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. So The Guardian, again, to kick off the final section. Josh, this story seems to be highly disrespectful of Polish culture.
Yeah. They should be allowed to be as racist as they want.
Not for The Guardian to say.
No. Outrage as Polish TV talent shows contestants using blackface for Kendrick Lamar and Beyonce performances. So there's a singer, Kuba Smiergowski, and actor Pola Gonciarz, and they basically darken their skin. They use the N-word during some of the songs for the Lamar song. And
when they're in character as the performers who would use that song themselves.
Yeah, they might also use it off stage. Who knows?
Yeah.
But they put it online, and a bunch of people went, "Whoa, hey, come! What are you doing?"
I've seen this online years ago. Have you seen this before?
I haven't seen this, but I mean, I can pretty much guarantee it's not Polish audience that's complaining about it. Someone from outside has seen this. This is unacceptable. But it's like, if a Polish person's singing the character, the N-word means nothing to them. If I say a swear word in Farsi now, it means nothing to anyone because you don't know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it's
just a lyric in the song as far as
it's a lyric in the song.
Like AI would do. I have seen these things, and not only do they black up, they just generally kind of schlock up. Do you know what I mean?
I don't know what schlock
It's just
means.
kind of like overdone makeup. It's all just like, it's a kind of pantomime of that. There is a picture in there, you can see it.
Okay.
But they kind of pantomime.
And that's not the real. That's not the real Lamar.
No, that's Lamar. That's Kendrick Lamar. Yeah.
So the thing is that the intention of each star performing on the show, as well as the whole production, is to recreate the original performance in the most precise manner while honouring the original artist. So this is the first time I've seen that. It's like, look, this isn't like one of the Charleston blackface
No,
acts.
exactly.
Like
It's an attempt to be authentic. But of course, I mean, you can argue back and forth whether or not it is offensive, but in their culture, in their culture, it's not.
Yeah,
I don't know that it's...
No, I saw a Japanese production of Fiddler on the Roof.
Right.
That was really fun. Like all Japanese, done in Japanese, and they were sort of it was very...
With beards and everything?
Kind of, but no, they were sort of staying in tradition. It was really funny.
I guess, we've done the Mikado. Antiques Roadshow have unearthed a controversy that could be worth a few quid now.
Yeah, Daily Mail reports that Viewer Fury, as Antiques Roadshow expert, suggests 2 guests should consider repatriating artifacts that were given as gifts to their ancestor by Ethiopian Emperor Haile Selassie. To Sir Harold Kidderminster, who was the governor protectorate between 1926 and 31, was given a golden robe and a personal letter by Haile Selassie. Years later on the Antiques Roadshow, his great-granddaughters came to present it. And it's valued at £5,000, and they were asked if they were going to give it back. But who would they give it back to?
Well, it feels to me like this might be a story out of nothing. Like, I wonder if he said it almost tongue-in-cheek. Obviously, he doesn't need to give it back. It wasn't stolen. It wasn't, seized as part of a colonialist raid. It was a gift given by the head of their state.
Well, yeah, but this is the thing. So this episode of the Antiques Roadshow was all about colonialism and repatriating it. So, that's what audiences say. Wait a minute, this was a gift. And who is it to go back to in the first place?
Selassie anymore, is there?
But don't feel bad, because the girls, the granddaughters, the 2 unnamed granddaughters said they absolutely would. So they're obviously super woke. Like, so I'll give it back. What he should have asked is, will you be wearing the golden robe?
Absolutely.
That's what I would.
Taking on board the full title.
That's right.
I think he had about 3 paragraphs of honorifics, didn't he, Haile Selassie?
Yeah.
Is he head of the Rastafarian church?
He's head of the Rastafarian, but he himself was, I think, was a proper Christian.
Yeah,
so it's like Jesus that way.
That's interesting.
You know what I mean? Like, he didn't follow in the own religion.
Anyway, go. We have the Times now, Josh. Once again, it turns out the least healthy thing you can do is the very thing I'm forced to do here every night.
Indeed. I can just feel you getting dementia sitting there. So over 60s risk dementia if they sit for more than 10 hours a day.
That's a lot of sitting.
That is a lot of sitting, but if you work for 8 hours a day and then you get home and you go and watch a couple hours of telly, and they say that getting up and just walking around and doing these half-hour breaks doesn't make a difference. You have to be less than 10 hours. And if you actually go up to 15 hours, the chance of getting dementia increases threefold. So it's a big deal.
That is a big deal, and that's not what I thought dementia was based on. I thought it was more about, a certain amount of exercise, but also, like, chemicals and things.
What about lying down?
Yeah, good question.
Lying down, I don't know.
Maybe inverting yourself, hanging from the gravity boots.
Maybe if
the blood rushes to your head. Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe everyone.
I mean,
sits
I think we do probably sit too much in the world generally. It's not a natural thing, is it? It's a fairly recent invention. The body wasn't made for it, but it's quite hard to.
What did they do in the olden days?
Well, they squatted. You probably know how to do this.
Yeah.
If you try, you can do
The Asian squat.
The sort of Bedouin squat, I think of it. It's
That's still basically sitting though.
Yeah. But I'd be interested to know whether that has a dementia link as well. Mining news now in The Independent. And, an exciting discovery for fans of battery-powered devices of one sort or another.
Yes, volcano discovery could power electric cars for decades. Scientists say ancient supervolcano holds potential to meet massive demand from global lithium rush. So an extinct volcano in the United States has discovered the world's largest lithium supply, which is obviously the main component for batteries in electric vehicles. However, Elon Musk, of the owner of the website X, formerly known as Twitter, as we all have to say now, said, look, lithium ore is quite common. It's more about, refining it. That's going to be the big problem. Also, this volcano is apparently on sacred land, which is owned by tribes. Of
course, that was going to happen. I do have a mate who invests in this kind of stuff, and I asked him about it, and he said, funnily enough, the share price of the company that would own this and benefit from it has gone down since the discovery of it, incredibly. So it's obviously not quite as easy as you might think. Anyway, show is nearly over. Let's take another quick look at Wednesday's front pages. The Daily Mail, Minister's threat to future of pensions triple lock. The Telegraph have Wallace, human rights laws are protecting terrorists. Guardian, beyond comprehension, Libyan flooding leaves thousands dead. The Times, MI5 warn Tories MP candidates may be spies. iNews, state pension triple lock under threat after election. And finally, the Daily Star, the secret of success, never give more than 85%. Those were your front pages. We have given you 100% tonight. That's all we have time for. Thank you to my guests, Josh Howie and Darius Davis. We're back at 11 p.m. with Andrew Doyle, Lewis Schaefer and the return of Leo Kurst. That'll be a classic. Thank you very much for staying with us. Enjoy your breakfast. Good night.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening, welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Now, it'll be feeling much more like autumn across the UK to start tomorrow morning, but it'll stay cloudy and milder across the southeast. That's because the milder air is being more confined to the southeast as this front has cleared eastwards across the country throughout today. It's brought quite a lot of heavy rain, and that rain will continue across southeastern areas through this evening. Continued risk of thunderstorms until around 8 or 9 o'clock. But then behind that, we get a lot of cloud across the southeast, some rain and drizzle still over the hills and the coast, but many areas seeing clear and dry weather across the rest of the UK, and it will feel much chillier tonight than recently. A touch of frost is possible tomorrow morning in any sheltered Scottish glens. A good deal of sunshine to start the day across the bulk of the country. However, the cloud will thicken through the day, particularly across the northwest, and also elsewhere we'll get some fair weather cloud bubbling up. But in the northwest, we'll see some rain arriving as well. And the temperatures will be a little bit below average for the time of year here. Elsewhere, much closer to the September average, highs of about 18 or 19 degrees. Now, the rain pushes down from Scotland into northern England on Thursday, leaving many parts of northern England and Wales with a damp and cloudy day. Elsewhere, though, drier with a risk of showers in the north. And in the south and east, it will be milder and drier once again. It stays warm across the southeast into the weekend with cooler, fresher weather, more restricted to the north.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nah, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good evening. Well, the French police partying in Calais as migrant boats leave the beaches. We'll speak to the Express journalist who's broken this extraordinary story of excess and clearly actually happy for the migrants to come to the UK. What on earth has happened to our £800 million? We'll talk about medical students. There is an exodus. Yes, they qualify, and then a third of them or more leave the country. Australia is facing a big vote next month. It could be Australia's Brexit-style moment. And the government are planning to ban disposable vapes to stop young people from taking up the habit. But will it actually work? Does banning things really make a difference? But before all of those important debates, let's get the news with Polly Middlehurst.
Nigel, thank you. Good evening. Well, the top story tonight, Poundland owner Pepco has agreed to buy up to 71 Wilko high street chain stores. It comes as the retailer prepares to close 24 of its outlets today, with the rest to shut by next month. That means over 12,000 jobs are now at risk, although Poundland says they do plan to offer roles to some Wilko team members where possible. And that comes as Barclays Bank is cutting over 450 positions. Unite, the union which represents employees at the bank, has branded the